streaming, van live, ezt úgy fogjuk csekkolni. Ezt igazán most létre akarjuk, hogy merítjük össze a Chrome-ba voltunk, az Edge-be.
Mind a kettőbe voltunk.
Biztos, hogy az Edge-be biztos, hogy bent vagyunk. Jó.
History-ból mutatja.
Jól csinál. És akkor azt mondjuk, hogy jól csinálunk.
Bocs, egy picit. Edge, YouTube, Your, és a Manage videóhoz hol volt? Jól csinál. Igen.
Igen, monogramodó.
Aha.
Live field.
Aha. Live field. Aha. Jó. És akkor ez az átlóképünk, amit volna most.
Már megy az élőadás. Tehát ez most már elég jó. És ilyenkor szoktam azt csinálni, hogy a splash screen-t kirakjuk. Valami splash screen, hogyha erről lenne készítve az egész, akkor legyen splash screen. És az a lényeg, hogy ilyenkor azt csinálni, hogy bemutatjuk. Kikapcsolni.
keywords. They are carefully listening to you.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. So my name is Anna. I'm working my research under Dr. Timur Shikosh supervision. So my title so far, maybe it will be redefined later, but currently is modeling road safety as a part of sustainable urban mobility. So the outline of my presentation will look like this. I will say something about the current activities, administrative progress, the research objectives, and scientific results so far. So I had teaching activities. I delivered 2 courses, decision-making methods and road safety engineering for MSc students. I have contributed to the development of teaching materials for both of these courses. I also support MSc students in thesis. I also provide some additional technical assistance in addition to my research and teaching activities. Okay, so the number of semesters achieved so far, this is my 8th semester. The total number of credits would be 241, including this semester courses. The total number of elaborated scientific results are 7. So the research is going so far so well. Okay, so the topic I already discussed, and the general aim is to develop methods to better understand the road safety situation and to assist decision making in bringing solutions for road safety challenges. So I have certain specific aims, building models, forecasting models for Budapest based on statistical tools for both intersections and road links. I also analyzed spatial dependence among crash events and build spatial econometric models. Then I also build machine learning models for accident prediction and identifying crash hotspots. I also build parametric models to support the cost-benefit analysis in making additional investment in road safety. I also built some simulation models in PTB BSUM and some transport planning frameworks are also part of the research work. So here are the list of finished research so far. Some of them in peer-reviewed journals and some of them in international conferences. So before starting analyzing the data, it was prepared in ArcGIS using the Budapest Road Network and crash data sets. Then the accidents, the network were segregated into between intersection and road links based on 50-meter buffer distance. Then finally, the segmentation was made to separate the accidents occurred in the junctions and road links. Then finally, accidents were joined with those accidents happen in the intersection are joined with the load behavior, and accidents that occur in the road links are also joined with the road link features and exported from the ArcGIS to Excel for analysis purpose. So this was the sample of the exported Excel. So the first scientific result was using the generalized linear model. So we considered all these parameters to make the generalized linear model. There are different number of accidents occurred in different road links. But most of the road links showed crash data 0 because accidents are considered to be rare events. So as you see in this graph, it's highly skewed because of its rareness. There were 1,586 accidents registered on 4,701 rollings. So the variance was found to be almost 2, while the mean is 0.66, which means the crash dataset shows over-dispersion behavior. So because of its over-dispersion behavior, Poisson distribution assumption is violated. So negative binomial distribution would give, like supposedly, would give a better result. So the generalized linear model has 3 components: the random component, systematic component, and the link function. So the steps of the modeling process were like this. First was specifying models into parts, equations linking the response and explanatory variables and probability distributions of the response variable. Then parameters were estimated. Then we check the goodness of it. Then finally made inferences from the models. So based on the AIC, DIC, and Pearson chi-square criteria, as we assume, the negative binomial model gave a better result compared to the Poisson. That's because of the over-dispersion parameter, because negative binomial treats better than Poisson in case of over-dispersion. It was analyzed in SPSS statistics. And the goodness of it also showed the model was acceptable. So the parameters that has a significant effect in the accident were as listed here. Then the second scientific result was spatial econometric, based on spatial econometric analysis. This was especially important to include the spatial dependence among the crash datasets into our models. Then for this, we aggregated every crash events that occurred on the rolling at the centroid of that rolling. Then we tested with Moran's I. Then we built OLS model, special autoregressive model, and special error models. Then we compared the 3 models with AIC, BIC, and log likelihood ratios. So based on the Moran's I test, we found out that there is dependence among crash datasets spatially, meaning they are not just random but clustered across the space. So as you see, the Moran's I value is 1.06, the Z score is 4.88, which is for 95% confidence level. The p-value is also significant. So different Moran I values based on the Euclidean distance and k-nearest neighbor were tested. And we compared the values and picked the best one when the k-nearest neighbor value is 1. So we also tested the model with Lagrange multipliers test for error and lag models, but both values are significant, so we cannot tell anything. So we checked the counter parts of the both models, the R and MERR and the R and M lag. So in that case, we found out the error model was better compared to the lag model. So for setting up these spatial multimatrices, we used to approach the Euclidean distance and the k-nearest neighbor approach. Then here are the results from different distance and k-nearest neighbor trials, and the maximum Moran I value was found in the k-nearest neighbor value of 1. Okay, then so p-values were statistically significant and all acceptable. The scores are positive and significantly higher than 1.96. So we rejected the null hypothesis, meaning they are spatially clustered, crash events are spatially clustered, or they have spatial dependence among each other. The expected, the morali values also exceed the expected one, so meaning it has a positive spatial autocorrelation, so meaning they are similar. And global moral cyclist value also gave us the score value of 4.88. So meaning there is less than 1% likelihood the cluster would come from random event. Then here are the model parameter estimates for the OLS, the spatial autoregressive model and the spatial error model. Then based on the AIC, BIC and log likelihood criteria, the spatial error model was found to be better than the other two models. So the results showed that incorporating the spatial effect actually improved the model predictability compared to the traditional OLS and spatial autoregressive models. Then the third scientific result was based on parametric models for value of statistical life. This was important because mostly decision makers fail to give the right judgment in making additional investment for road safety because they have no explicit information about the benefit of reducing accident or saving one person's life. So we made these models, the parametric models, based on log logistic, log normal and log logistic, log normal and Weibull models. Then we finally compared the three and log logistic were found to be better than the others. So based on that, we calculated the mean and median values, which gives finally the value of statistical life. Okay, here are the acceptance probability, the mean and median equations for log normal, log logistic, and Weibull model. Then finally, considering the mean and median of the better model among the three, we calculated the value of statistical life or the marginal rate of substitution for the 50% reduction of accidents annually. Then here is the scatter plot of the willingness to pay or accepting the initial and final bids for road safety improvement with the demographic profiles of respondents. Then finally the outputs for the parametric model was like this, and this is specifically for logistic model. So the other, it was better than the other two models based on the AS and AS criteria. So as you see, we found the mean and median values. So we used that for the calculation of the BSA. And the fourth scientific result was machine learning model based on the Neural Solution Software 6, and it was along a 60-kilometer corridor. So based on these different parameters, we divided the datasets into three categories for training, test, and cross-validation. Then finally, the learning curve looks like this. Then here the desired output and actual or the observed and predicted looks like this. Then based on the sensitivity analysis, the flyover and wherever there is a flyover or underpass, we have seen significance in predictability. Then the last scientific result is the planning model. So it is because there should be a paradigm shift in dealing with urban mobility, so that we can reduce the impact of transport externalities, specifically traffic accidents. And this was done in the case of Ethiopia. And we have built this framework to support planners to consider sustainability in the decision-making process of urban mobility projects. Sorry, I think I took more time.
Yes, 1 minute, but thank you very much for keeping it short. So, as you are in the 8th semester, you are going to finish your dissertation, so that's what I wanted to ask. If you already have theses, could you please little bit talk about your theses?
Yes. Here are the outline of my dissertation. I'm just expecting it to be 5 in number. So the first would be generalized behavior models. The second would be machine learning models, econometric models, parametric models, and planning models. So I will have 5 theses. So including the introduction and the conclusion, I would make it 7 chapters.
Okay. The first question arises here: where are you going to submit your dissertation?
At the beginning of the next semester. So around September, October, I would expect to be.
Do you fulfill all the requirements, language exams? Do you have?
Yes.
Thank you. And the publication requirements?
Yes.
Very good.
So I'm just working on the dissertation part so far.
Very good. Thank you very much for keeping the time in terms of presentation and in terms of our PhD program. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
I would suppose that you would like to change the date.
Okay. Okay. I think it is okay.
These are new results, not from last year. Yes.
Yes.
I believe that the ultimate magnificent value.
Okay. Here. So 5 days.
We already did results last year. And in binding of vacation. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much.
And now I would like Gabriel from the same department to make his presentation. Please, the floor is yours. And I would like also ask 15 minutes, please.
Okay. Yeah, good morning everyone. I'm Gabriel, and the title of my research is Identifying the Complex Criteria for Access Control and Transportation, looking at it from the environmental perspective. Well, the scope of my presentation will go in the order of first the background of my study, the semester, the finished results, the semester research, and then I'll go into the activities and the administrative results. Progress. So, there is a need to reduce traffic-related externalities. That's a given. We've already known that. Then different policy instruments have been adopted time over time, but then they always have different levels of impact. And it seems cities usually want to focus more on the pull instruments. And when I'm talking about pull instruments, I'm referring to development of public transport, active mobility, shared mobility, and others, without focusing on the push. And without a good balance or a mix of the pull and push, we may not actually get the environmental impacts we can. So the policy instruments that have been established up to date have failed to actually achieve most of the environmental objectives, which calls for more of push measures. But then what's the reason why people actually find it difficult to implement these push measures? It's because of varying concerns. It's difficult to implement. People don't want it in others. And that is the basic motivation for my research, where I plan to look at access control measures, otherwise known as one vehicle access regulations, which consist of measures like road pricing, low emission zones, access restrictions, some parking restrictions and others, and how to reposition it so that we can make our cities environmentally friendly and climate neutral. And to achieve this, I will basically be setting up a theory-based approach for efficient and effective adoption and implementation of UVARs. So my specific objectives are to go through like the past, the present, and the future approach. So I started by first reviewing the current policy instruments. Then I investigated the measure of adoption and why there are failures and why it's difficult to actually implement. Then from there, I proceeded to identify the criteria for effective implementation. And after this, I evaluated the conditions for implementation. And finally, I will be assessing the interdependencies between these UVAR measures and the new mobility services, or like some people preferably call it the disruptive mobility technologies. So this will give me 5 parentheses. The first will be the investigation of the barriers to UVAR adoption. The second is the citizens' preferences for UVAR measure design. The third is the criteria for effective UVAR adoption, which is like the main scope of the research. The fourth is investigating UVAR and the transition towards sustainably powered urban mobility. And finally, the last thesis will be on the impact of UVAR in an era of disruptive mobility technologies. And this has been an area of challenge, so that we'll have the answer there. So, looking at the finished research, so starting from the past, the state of the art review of Ubers, I came to identify that the environmental impacts derived from this policy implementation usually falls short of set targets and goals which are earlier established. And most of the literature dealing on Ubers actually they deal on the impact without dwelling on how the policy was formulated and how it was implemented. So there is no, it's actually difficult from the academic research and scientific literature for cities to actually do a kind of a knowledge transfer or knowledge inheritance. And finally, how to integrate the disruptive mobility trends together with Uber in these times of emerging technologies is also a challenge. So with this, I started first by investigating the database of access regulations in Europe, which is the class data insights. And I looked at the number of instruments we have in every country across Europe. And from that, we observed that there's a dominance of low emission zones, and then a few of pollution emergency schemes. Then we have actually the access restrictions, which is quite much, but just a little of congestion charging. But if we go back into the theory of neoclassical economics, you'll find people like the classical economics, like Arthur Pigou, arguing that congestion charging is actually the best, while all these other measures which are more predominant are like second best solutions. So this is why we have some more predominant than the others. And even when you look at the case of Hungary, you only find that all we have is just access restrictions with no formal low emission zones and congestion charging. So this prompted me to first investigate why we have the low adoption of Ubers in Hungary. And for this, I used the in-depth interview, and because of the pandemic, at some point I couldn't continue with in-depth interviews, and I had to switch to open-ended surveys. And in all, I had 21 respondents, and doing the thematic analysis of the research. But the coverage of the cities I have basically are listed here, and the ones in red are those that I can have direct respondents from. But then I got some consultants who have actually had the experience of working in these cities. And in addition, I have 2 villages, which are not cities, but they also giving their own perspectives on these issues. And the preliminary insight we find from this and the case of political agenda and public acceptability is one of the main reasons why Uber is not acceptable or is not implemented in Hungary. Then you find out the existing public transport connections usually focus on the city center, and they don't look beyond the city center. And when this is the case, if you're trying to restrict vehicles, then how do you serve those that are coming from the suburbs? Then also the case of financing too. We have automobile companies coming in the country, present in places like Geo. We have BMW coming to Debrecen, and you should expect these people to lobby against mechanisms that will reduce the presence of more vehicles in cities. Also, we have the impact of lobbyists. Businesses and city centers believe that if you actually restrict or regulate the access of vehicles to these places, then that means it's going to cause a shortfall for their vehicles. So they also lobby against this. And finally, the lack of institutional capacity, which I stressed earlier. There is no knowledge transfer between the best practices that are available and the other parts of Europe or other parts of the world that are investigating these measures. So this led me to try to identify what are the specific criteria that we'll need to adopt Uber or to implement Uber as the case may be. And using the Delphi study, a multi-round Delphi study, I actually did 2 rounds of survey and then some non-parametric statistical tests. I was able to get an assessment structure having 5 dimensions and 30 criteria. And based on the outcome of the results, the participants, 62 in the first round and 41 in the second round, they all agreed on about 24 that they are quite important. But while some criteria like revenue, the impact on SMEs, gender and social norms, and the availability of park and ride facilities, they were considered important, but there was no real agreement on this because of diverse views. While the last category, we have the cross-agency cooperation framework and mobility as a service deployment. This was also problematic to some believe like these things can actually even increase the number of vehicles on the streets and not decrease it. So it's quite problematic. But this is the findings of the result. So we also did a kind of a ranking of this criteria and to see, okay, which are more important and which are less important, and then we found this. And while in the dimension we found the environment more important than the other criteria, the other dimensions, there was no agreement based on the statistical results. So I wouldn't actually accept the results of this ranking for the dimension. But for the others, there were consistent agreement between the rankers. And so this is the result. So from this, I proceeded to doing an evaluation of the disruptive mobility technologies. And this is just a basic literature review, and it shows that, well, they also have roles to play in improving the environmental objectives in cities. But what we'll have to do is we'll have to get effort to improve the market penetration of these tools. And then we also have to reposition technology and innovation as enablers. They shouldn't be the drivers of policy, but they should actually enable the policy. And the paradox of electromobility, mobility as a service, automated vehicles is quite prominent too. You have to consider the Jenkins paradox, because if you're not careful while you're using this to actually control environmental objectives, you might actually be using it to increase the number of vehicles. And so, well, you're trying to consider this environment at some point, but at the same time, you still have prominent congestion, which is still a problem. So this also has to be examined, and then that means you have to control the business model for these innovations. But now focusing on one of the disruptive technologies that went into electromobility, since I said that we have to focus effort at achieving the market penetrations, I look at different parameters or different incentives that actually drive this market penetration of electromobility, focusing specifically on the battery electric vehicles, which are the fully electric vehicles. And based on the test collected data from 15 European countries over a period of 9 years, and we found that the presence of a production facility in a country, a good GDP, the high number of fast chargers per urban population, and then where you have VAT benefits, value-added tax benefits for people, for adopters of these electric vehicles. These are main significant drivers of this technology in cities. But sadly, local, where I have the UBARU measures, that is looking at the restrictions, was not identified as a significant figure. So that means more work has to be done to discover why do we have this result. And so, proceed. So this semester, that's all about previous semester. So this semester I started by first analyzing the public perception of UBARU, and I took an approach of doing like a data mining approach by mining data from Twitter through the Twitter API, and then subjected that to natural language processing. And what was I trying to do? I was trying to just look at what do people perceive about access regulations. It is one thing for you to ask the citizens, like, what do you feel about these measures? But it is another thing for people to willingly express themselves. And this is what happens on Twitter. People will come out willingly express themselves without any restriction. And so we collected about 160,000 tweets, and when we subjected this to analysis, we discovered that about 39% of them were negative, 16% were neutral, which were just like maybe like information or announcements, and for the 5% were positive. And we can observe like there has been a rise on the Uber discussions over the years, particularly in 2020 where people were at home and people were complaining a lot, and also 2020 marked a period where London actually introduced the ultra low emission zone, so there were more discussions at this particular point in time. But another thing we try to do, we try to segregate the different measures. We try to look at the general perception on the world, then segregated the data set into two subsets. The first subset is those talking about the congestion charging and road pricing, while we have the other regulations on the other side. The main reason why this was actually done was there was a predominance of congestion-related discussions on these tweets. So we felt like this being dominant can actually derail the result a bit. But on investigating, it was surprising to find that the perception, the mean monthly perception on road pricing measures is actually even better than other access regulations. And whereas most cities would not invest or they will not implement road pricing just because they feel the public acceptability is low. So this was a surprising result, and we offered two explanations. It's either first is because people are actually subjected to habit. We are used to habit. If you are used to driving your car and then you are told to pay higher to use the car, you actually you won't mind. The same thing that happens with rising fuel costs. Even if fuel costs are rising as we currently have around the world, people are still using their cars. This is a case of habit. So that was the first explanation. And the second explanation is, well, as long as people can get to use their cars, they won't mind paying. So from there, I also modeled the topics, looking at the main topics that were present in the positive tweets and the negative tweets. And I found the positive tweets were basically about support for the plants because of the emission reduction capabilities, the reduction in car flow capabilities, safety, and the last one is overall suspension, which I marked with an exclamation, which I will explain that. But for the negative ones, we have people expressing their specific displeasures about the London and the DLA schemes particularly. People talking about the equity, people talking about acceptability, people talking about exemptions. And we also have grievances from public authorities, people complaining on how do they pay their fines. Or there was a funny case where a vehicle that was being towed, that was on a towing van that was being charged for infringing. And also, people were also complaining about congestion charges and additional road tax. But the problematic one is the overall suspension. These tweets were positive, but they were actually sarcasm. And based on this, we can actually see that this method of semantic analysis, natural language processing can be problematic. So if you're not actually holding, show the true picture, except we'll have to train through machine learning some development for this. And the ongoing research which I'm currently doing is to elicit the citizen preferences in environmental design. I'm looking at discrete choice experiment and factor analysis. Just to be brief, since I've not analyzed the discrete choice yet, but if you're going to look at the reaction that people are stating that they would have to override implementation in Budapest, most people argue that they will either shift to public transport, shift to active mobility, or reduce their trips. But the problematic part is there is no significant difference between those that will change to alternative fuel vehicles and those that will shift to shared mobility. So it can actually just sway the other way around. So when we're looking at disruptive mobility technologies, we have to be careful on this part when we introduce UVR measures to places like Budapest. And finally, I won't dwell on this because it was a collaboration with the previous speaker and they already talked about it, so I can just easily move on. So for my planned research, I will be validating the identified criteria using the MCDA approaches and then considering my simulation of the policy instruments. And so far, this is my 8th semester, I've achieved 56 credits. I worked on 3 papers actively this semester, and together with 6 previous articles. And as my other activities, basically, I wasn't teaching activities for me this semester, but I'm still a member of the EISA Mobility Doctoral Training Network, and also a member of the reference group for the Civitas Review projects. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much for keeping the time and the presentation. What I would like to ask you are also in the 8th semester.
Yes.
Very good. Then according to the presentation that you are very present and very good results. Congratulations. Have you started to write your dissertation?
Actually, no.
Okay, and what is your plan? When would you like to submit it?
I foresee submitting late August, early September.
Okay, and do you fulfill all the requirements, language exams?
Yes.
Very good. Publication requirements?
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. Meanwhile, I would like to ask Hakan Bashardan, but I believe he is not with us unfortunately. Then Mohammad Shahnavi, would you be so kind to show us your results?
This is my presentation.
This is presentation. Okay.
Meanwhile, I would like to suggest those of you who would like to postpone that until next time. Before the session is very, very
There are 2 presentations.
presentation because
Oh,
then we will
okay.
waste time. So again, Mohammad Shahnavi, Ali Mahdi, Hamid Saud, Rasa Ismail, Laila, Umdan, and Farah Al-Shafia is going to be our presenters. Before the break, so having heard your name, please do not ask for my presentation because you can read in the document.
This is my presentation. It's my time. Maybe after I finish, you can yeah, this one.
Which this or this? Certificate.
Yeah.
years. I'm studying the efficient application of modular charging in smart airport environment. This is the title of my dissertation. So this is the outline, so I'll go directly into waste any time. I started the administrative program, where I have completed 246 credits and 14 publications. 4 of them are under review now during the 4 years, and with accumulated grade point average of 4.95. During the 4th year, I was assigned to teach lectures for the subject transport economics and supervise the master student thesis work. My supervisor is Dr. Research, is very supportive and introduced me all these new opportunities, extend my knowledge about the research topic, moreover.
Make me a little bit louder.
Yeah, sure.
Because it is cheaper to write them hard.
Yeah. So again, this is administrative progress. I have completed this number of credits and 14 publications. 4 of them now is under review in Impact Factor Journal. During the 4th year, I was assigned to teach lectures from the subject transport economics and supervise the master thesis student work. My supervisor, Dr. Research, who is very supportive, introduced me always to new opportunities and extend my knowledge about the research topic. Moreover, he replies to my inquiries quickly and provide all support that I need to conduct my research. I go to the publications now. So these are like some publications. For example, these are publications under review, and this one was published just 2 minutes ago. Yeah, we received the email just now. So these are other publications relating road pricing in smart urban environment, as I will speak later. These are other publications either under review or published. And here come the conferences that I have participated on. I won't waste your time reading just the titles and what conference was that. So I start with the overview of the topic. The AVs and shared AVs is expected to improve the network performance and increase accessibility. However, this increased accessibility will result in more traveled miles on the network, as well as it will aggregate congestion. That's why we need to regulate this traffic congestion, and one of the best solution or possible solution is road pricing. My research shed lights on the possible approach to sufficiently and efficiently apply road pricing in light of emergence of AVs and shared AVs. The research gap and aims of this research, I have mainly 2 main research gaps, and I did 4 different research to achieve covering them. The first one is to study the acceptability of road pricing in the era of AVs and shared AVs, because road pricing is considered by many as efficient application for handling congestion. Despite its benefit, people usually reject applying the road pricing because they don't want to pay for using road. If we look to the literature, we will find since late 1980s, so many research has been done to study the acceptability of road pricing. And similarly, lately there were many researchers who does surveys and questionnaires to investigate the public perception of the advantage and disadvantage of self-driving cars. So, according to my knowledge and to the rest of it, there is no study that investigated the road pricing acceptability in connection with the adoption of AVs and shared AVs and the factor influencing them. So this was the first research gap to cover in the dissertation. To achieve this goal, I took 2 steps. The first step was to make a survey distributed in 5 capitals around the world, determine the factors that are influencing the road pricing acceptability based on well-known methodology. In the second step, I developed the previous survey, I modified it and disseminated in 5 other countries around the world to investigate the selected factors influence in road pricing acceptability and self-driving vehicle adoption. The result of the distributed 10 surveys in 8 different countries has been completed, and most of them are published already. So the other research gap is to investigate the implication of applying a static and dynamic road pricing strategy in era of AVs and shared AVs using simulation-based dynamic traffic assignment in the city of Budapest. For this reason, again, two steps I took to investigate this research gap. The first one, we analyzed the effect of emergence of ABs and shared ABs on Budapest network and consumer surplus in alternative future traffic scenario using Visum software. And in the other one, we investigated the impact of applying different road pricing strategies, static and dynamic, on the previously investigated future scenario, including the advent of ABs and shared ABs on the Budapest network and social welfare. So, the conducted research so far, the result of the distributed surveys from the 10 countries, or the 10 surveys from 8 countries, has been completed, and most of them are published. I succeeded in collecting 2,136 completed and valid responses from Hungary, Jordan, Azerbaijan, Syria, Mongolia, Ukraine, Tunis, and Brazil. The collected data from all countries were analyzed using various econometric models like multiple linear regression, factor analysis, multinomial logistics model, etc. The model presents the current level of road pricing acceptability, the cognitive determinant of road pricing acceptability, the effect of previous mentioned points on future car choice, and the cognitive determinant of future car choice, the level of adoption of ABs and shared ABs, and the effect of the previous mentioned points on road pricing acceptability. Similarly, the simulation, the Visum software simulation for Budapest network was completed, and the related papers were submitted. As I mentioned, one of them was published 2 minutes ago. I succeeded in submitting 4 papers related to the implication of ABs and shared ABs advent and modeling different road pricing strategies. The result included the impact on Budapest network performance and social welfare, so traffic engineering and economics together were analyzed. Novelty and uniqueness of this research topic. This research topic is considered innovative and groundbreaking since it investigates and raises specific questions regarding road pricing in light of future mobility. For example, how public will receive road pricing with the emergence of ABs and shared ABs, how the adoption of ABs and shared ABs will be affected in the presence of road pricing, what is the implication of ABs and shared ABs advent, what is the optimal road pricing strategy in the era of ABs and shared ABs in Budapest. The thesis point for dissertation, these are thesis point for dissertation, which it is already related to what I have explained earlier about the research topic. The future research, there are similar approaches in regarding future research. For example, if we talk about the survey, researchers can include a new variable like AB, shared AB, perceived safety or self-driving cars, legal liability, or perceived comfort, and carry out research using a prototype of self-driving car alongside road pricing to gain more useful insight into how presence of road pricing inclusion and the inclusion of self-driving car experience is likely to influence the potential users to accept the concept of these two different things together. In addition, the future research may use a stated preference experiment to explore the effect of road pricing attribute, for example, the toll value, on self-driving vehicle adoption, which can give more insight into how different road pricing tools could affect the vehicle adoption. Another research or future research work is possible to include the effect of pricing strategies. This is regarding the second part, which is modeling part. So effect of pricing strategies on mode choice, people's mobility behavior. Or future research may extend the research to find the impact of pricing strategies on environment using HIPCA model add-on, which it is provided by Visum and PTP Visum software. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your presentation, and from your result it's clearly seen that you are at the 8th semester as well, so congrats. Congratulations for keeping that. What is your plan? When would you like to submit your dissertation?
Hopefully during July.
During today?
July.
Okay, just a joke. And second question arises here that how about the language exam? Do you fulfill the requirements?
For home defense, you mean, sir?
Yes, from language exams.
Language exam, I have the English language with the IELTS exam, like the required one. And I have certificate that I did my primary, secondary, high school in Arabic.
Very good, thank you. And as we can see, you also fulfill publication requirements.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And now we continue. Yes, after Muhammad Shadran, I would like to ask Ali Martin to give his presentation. Meanwhile, I would like to ask Ali to try to give his 15 minutes. Okay? Thank you very much.
Yes, a presentation. Thank you so much.
Hello everyone. My topic under the name of incorporating of the activity chain optimization method and geographic information system for guiding tourist activities. Imagine that you are a tourist in tourism city like Budapest and you want to book the optimal accommodation place, and then you want to guide and plan for your rest of activities. So my work is optimization of the activity chain of tourists. Actually, this problem belongs to the travel salesman problems, which is that the tourist will start from a point like a hotel and my place, and he will aim to visit several touristic activities, and then he will turn back to the same point at the same day after finishing his schedule. This travel salesman problems is like NP problems, which can be solved by several search algorithms like orthogonal, genetic algorithm, and neural networks. So as you can see here in this simple graph, we have like fixed activities, and the rest is like the other activities of tourists. Some of these activities are regular, I mean fixed in time and location. Some of them are not regular in activities, I mean they are flexible in time, location, or both in time and location. So here is my general goal is to establish a comprehensive model for optimizing the activity chain of tourists by developing a model for assist tourists to find the optimal place of accommodation in the city area, and then optimizing the other activities of tourists that might involve some flexibilities in time or location, in terms of time or location or both. Based on my research problems, I have 6 thesis points. The first one related to the activities, I mean the optimal accommodation places in the city area. I combine between the geographic information system and multi-criteria decision-making like the PhD method in order to find the optimal suitability map in the city area based on some realistic parameters such as the cost per room, the distance or the location parameter, the level of security, and the place rating, and the availability of free cancellation and breakfast. These factors can be seen on the such application reservation and websites. The second thesis point related to the rest of my thesis point, working on the second part of my activities, I mean the flexible activities, but based on the literature review, I found some gaps related to the modeling of the time spent at point of interest based on given popular time. Actually, there is no study predict the processing time or time spent at point of interest. So based on this, we implement like a Python code in order to collect the Google popular time data or the behavioral data Then we model this collected data in order to predict the time spent of visitor or individual in point of interest in Budapest city. Robust linear and linear models were utilized in this point. The third thesis point is related also to the optimization of the activity chain, but because we have 10 parameters, we want to prioritize these factors from the high importance to the low importance. Because we have 10 parameters, we apply multi-criteria decision making, but we cannot apply the traditional approaches of the MCDM. That's why we apply the new technique of multi-criteria decision making, which is the Bersonius analytical hierarchy process, in order to prioritize these 10 parameters of that affect on the schedule or the plan of the activity chain of tourists. The fourth thesis point, which is the core of my study, which is the optimization of the activity chain of tourists using the genetic algorithms. In this point, new utility functions have been developed based on 10 realistic parameters, as well as the flexibility of the demand point well considered in these utility functions. Also, the preference of tourists have been involved in these algorithms. The reason behind using the genetic algorithms because we are working on a global research area, so we cannot use the rest of the algorithms. I mean research algorithms. Yes, and here is the fourth thesis point. The fifth thesis point related to studying the behavioral of tourists. I have two objectives. This is point one of them studying the effect of social demographic and economic factors of the tourists on the using transport mode. The second objective is investigate the effect of COVID-19 on tourist behavioral, where statistical models were applied for analyzing papers. This point. And the sixth thesis point, I'm working on the last thesis point. Actually, I mean the fourth. I'm working on solo trips of tourists. But in this thesis point, I'm working on optimization of activity chain of a group of tourists. So in this thesis point, I aim to like find a new utility function in order to maximize the satisfaction of a group of tourists. Then I will extend the genetic algorithm code using this new utility functions. And here is project in my thesis. And I want to show you some of my. This is some of my applications. I have achieved like 9 publications, and in the last thesis point I'm working on the last thesis point this semester. Some of them published, some of them submitted, some of them under review. I want to show you some of my results. Here is some of my results related to the first thesis point. I mean the optimal accommodation places. As I mentioned before, I combine between geographic information system and the quasi-IHV method in order to find a final suitability map in the city area. As we can see here in this final suitability map, there is some accommodation places highly recommended for tourists, some of them not recommended. As we can see here in this district 5, because of the low level of security and the high cost of these accommodation places. This is some results related to the modeling the time spent at point of interest in Budapest city. So you can see here the trend of weekly Google popular time of the visitor and point of interest category in Budapest city. Yes, and as I mentioned, the spatial and non-spatial variables were simply predict the time spent on weekdays and weekend. The reason behind simply the data between weekdays and weekend, because we found that the trend of the Google popular time totally different weekday and weekend. Spatial and non-spatial parameters were used in these models. The spatial parameters such as the availability of the transport, the station spot, and the public transport, and the location parameters. The non-spatial parameters were utilized in these models, also like a rating of point of interest and the type of point of interest. And here's a result related to prioritizing the 10 adopted parameter in my study, as I mentioned. Because we have 10 parameter, we cannot apply the traditional method of multi-criteria decision making based on the Bersonius analytical hierarchy process. We can prioritize these parameters. And I see that the security parameter was the highest importance, meanwhile the privacy has the lowest importance on the schedule and the plan of the tourist activity chain. And I see this, the logical and reasonable outcomes. Yes. Here is some of the special outcomes related to safety in the city area, and here is the spatial analysis related to the security parameter in my city area. As we can see here, that the center or the CBD of Budapest has the low level of security, which is affected on some results. Meanwhile, in general, Buda site has a high level of security compared with the best site in the city area. And here are some of my results related to the implementing the genetic algorithms to optimize the activity chain of tourists. As I mentioned, we consider the performance, time parameters, and some research related to the time window of tourists and the destinations. Based on this, I implemented the genetic algorithms based on two scenarios, like private car or public transport. For each scenario, I have 4 sub-scenarios. The first one related to the fixed activities. I use this one only for comparison purpose. The second scenario, I used the flexible activities with equal parameters. Then in the C-parameter scenario, I give the priority for the travel time, and in the last scenario, I give the priority to the security parameter. When I implement the genetic algorithms, as we can see here is the private vehicle for tourists when they're using the first scenario here, and here is the second scenario where we have some flexibility. I mean flexibility in locations. As we can see here is the flexible R0 substituted by R1. So we can see there is a reduction in the travel time of these algorithms. But when we give the high priority for the security parameter, we see that the R1 substituted with R3, which is located in a high level of security, as we can see here. Here is the level of security, here is the R0, and here is the level of security of this district. So we get a promising result when we implement the genetic algorithms. And for when we implement the genetic algorithms for the public transport, also we have like the flexible activity is substituted with another activities that are getting in District 11, which have the relatively high level of security compared to the other district. As a result, there is a dramatic reduction in the travel time, and we enhance the utility preference of the tourist. And yes, here is my work plan for the semester 7. I am working on the last thesis point, which is the optimization of the activity chain of a group of tourists. Also following the submitted papers, and I hope I can write my presentation. And I would like to mention that during my last semester, I support my supervisor with teaching activities like smart city and intelligent transport system, correcting some papers and control some exam hall. So I think I've committed with the time. I will give you some time for question and answer. Thank you for your kind attention. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your presentation and keeping the time. What I was sure about your language certificates, could you please tell me?
About, sorry?
The language exams.
Yeah, the language exam. Also, I have like studying my bachelor in English, but I am studying in Arabic in my during primary and secondary school.
Okay.
And I might be prepared for IELTS exam if it's needed. Okay.
Thank you very much. About the publication, I would like to draw your attention that you have the list with 9 elements. Meanwhile, in the Hungarian interface of MTMT, you have only uploaded 5 of them.
Yes, because some of them, as I mentioned here, submitted and the review on. Not all of them published.
But is it going to be accepted? Do not forget to upload the bibliography data to the MTMT system, please.
Sure, I will do that. Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for the time.
And you mentioned that in next semester you plan to write your dissertation.
Yes, I have a plan to work on my sorry, my last thesis point. After that, found, during this period, I found the submitted paper, and I hope to start writing my dissertation maybe in January or so.
Okay. Keep in mind, please, that after writing dissertation, you have to have a home defense and then a public defense, and also these procedures have time requirements.
Yes, yeah.
Organizing. Thank you very much for the presentation. And now I would like to ask Untitled to make a presentation.
This one?
Yes.
This one?
Forward.
Hello everyone, I'm the presenter Hang, and my PhD topic is to develop a model for developing autonomous roundabout. Here's the structure of my today's presentation. First, we are going to have a brief overview on my research motivation and the significance. Next, going into my research background, how to define a scenario, how to define the constraints, and about the vehicle modeling. And then we will have a work overview on my whole PhD. And the last part is my future work. First is the roundabout. Roundabout is the main traffic scenario in my research work. And it is a type of a circular intersection, or junction we can call, in which road traffic is permitted to flow in around one circle lane and around the central island. And the traffic rules is a bit different with the intersection and the highway road. It should be give the priority to typically to the traffic already in the junction, in the inner circle. So what's the difference between the roundabout and the traditional intersection is the crossing, inclusion, and the exclusion points. Their crossing and the crossing density is different. So here is one variable of my research work. And why we do the scenario in the roundabout, because now many researchers doing their vehicle planning and controlling in the highway, like how to overtake the vehicle and how to do the collision avoidance. But because in the highway, the vehicle speed is very high, but in the roundabout, it's the urban area, so the vehicle speed is low. But it's not mentioned that roundabout also has its research significance because it's a geometric design and a large curvature road. So in the driving behavior in roundabout, we isolate in three parts to do the research work. First is global planning. In this part, mission planning and route planning is important. And behavioral planning is how when there are other road users come and how we react. So it's the event and the maneuver manager. Third is the local planning. We do the trajectory planning first based on the global planning. And when there's other road users, pedestrian or other vehicles come, how we do the collision avoidance. So the scenarios in the research work, the background we are based on 4 types. One is roundabout types. Roundabouts have many roundabouts, single lane roundabouts, multi-lane roundabouts, and based on the designer, their function, different terrorists, different country, maybe they have different design function based on the single lane roundabout and multi-lane roundabout. So we need to analyze in different terrorists. And also for the roundabout policy, different country, they have different design standard and different traffic rules. Like in England, we have the left turn rules, and other country like Germany have the right turn rules. So it's also the difference. When we analyze the roundabout section, we also need to know what's the entrance, what's in the circulatory way, and also how to define the exit way. So here are the constraints. It's also called the other road users, like the road conditions. We already know. We already built the model and how to define other road users. And I classify in the pedestrian and also traffic crossing in front of the yellow car, like the traffic is already in the inner circular, and also the cyclists with the bicycle, you can see, and also the large vehicles. Large vehicles, because of the mass and their vehicle model is different, so it should also be one topic. And for my vehicle modeling, there are two vehicle modelings can be used. One is a kinematic bicycle model, and another one is a dynamic model. Dynamic model is for the further work because it can build with the vehicle mass and considering the tire model, even if maybe they have the slip on the tire. So for the kinematic bicycle model is what I'm doing now, and the input is the vehicle speed and the steering angle built into the model as input, and the output will be the reference X position, Y position, and the vehicle heading, and built as a matrix to do the mathematical calculation. Here is my completed work overview. I make it into 3 sections. One is for the vehicle decision making, and the motion planner, and tracking controller. In the decision making, we have the discussion on driving behavior in single lane roundabout and with the median roundabouts. Motion planner is build the global planner and the statistic local planner. For tracking controller, built with the 3 kinds of controller to test which one is best in the different roundabouts. I will illustrate in further work. First, we go with the path planning. In path planning techniques, they have 4 main techniques. And based on my roundabout model, I choose the interpolating curve based to do the planning, path planning. And in the path planning, they have a Bezier curve, rational Bezier curve, and B-spline to do the path planning. And as all the Bezier curve, rational Bezier curve, and B-spline also build the model. But in the driving conditions in the roundabouts, for the you can see have the 3 driving conditions in the roundabouts, and as we test, the B-spline is the most best performance in the roundabout condition. So in this model, I split in 3 sections. One is entrance and circulatory roadway and exit with the 4 legs single lane roundabout. And here is the geometry parameters for single lane roundabout in different countries. Based on the standard area and their data, we build which route is best for the vehicle to do the global planning. And here is the 3 major points for the global planner. One is define roundabout maneuver planning procedure, and then to identify the entry angle of the entrance and the circulatory roadway. Third is define the roundabout maneuver planner constraints. And in this part, here is the vehicle visible region, which we define the vehicle cannot go out of the road. So, and the entry angle is the conflict point of the entrance path and the circulatory roadway. Also, the entry leg radius and the exit radius, their angle is also the variable of this work. So how, after we build the system, how we do the algorithm, and in this part I use the uniform B-splines because in the most of the research work they use a uniform B-spline, and I'm thinking how to, because of the roundabout large curvature is characteristic, how to build B-spline, how to build it with B-spline. So after we try and test, the uniform B-spline is best for the roundabout. And it's for the parametric, so it has a one part to connect together, and so they have each part have a k equal knots to do the parametric planning. So first we will have the integrated expression, and then we need to transform into matrix to do the mathematical calculation. And then use knots vector to do the path control points solver. And we can see in this picture they have three piecewise generation curve, and also continue them to do the path planning. So the main contribution in this work is to solve the waypoint selection problem based on the road structure and to find the relationship of the path shape and the optimal waypoint position, and also generate the path in roundabout, both keeping forward and the recurve path smoothly. These three paths is the forward path, and this one is have a big recurve path. Here is also a big recurve path, and because of the big curvature, this is also the important point of this work. And here are the roundabout test framework, how we do the test. First, we have the system planner, and then select the mission, and segment the route, and also select the waypoints. And then we have 5 case studies on 5 driving directions. Also, we have different route intersection angle set based on different country standards. So, and we can see this table because the table is very big. So I just have the head of the table here to see how I do the research in how I do the test in this research work. So one is the variable is the outer radius and the intermediate radius, exit radius, and the intersection angle. This 4 is the main variable of this test, and also based on these 4 variables give the determined waypoint coordinates to build the planner framework. It's the different intersection angle based on the same outer radius and the exit radius. And then the next topic is the tracking controller. So which method fits in the roundabout scenario most? Is the pure pursuit method and the static control method. And the model predictive control is for the numerical method. These 2 are the geometric methods. First, we go with the static controller. Static controller is using the cross-track error E and the heading deviation. So the calculate the cross-track error here to minimize the vehicle position itself and to the reference. So the steering control law is the relationship between the cross-track error and the vehicle heading deviation, and it's a steering. So in this work, the study case of 5 different directions of the roundabout and minimize the cross-track error and control the yaw rate itself. So implement all possible global planner trajectory planning is already finished, and we also minimize the cross-track error to make the tracking controller stable. The errors are smaller than 0.5 meters, and with the big curvature path, we can see in this research the error was high. Here is one direction, and it's the second leg of the roundabout exit. The cross-check error is in 0.1 meters. And this one is the another direction of the roundabout to go. And we can see the yaw rate and the velocity and the cross-check error as this work results. My third work is the trajectory tracking with the model predictive controller. I did this MPC controller. It's based on the numerical method to build. And here is the system overview. It's based on the global planning, the first work we already introduced, and as the x, y, and velocity as the reference input into the system model, and give the output of the velocity and the steering to the MPC optimizer. MPC optimizer is what we build as the objective function, and also have the cost function and constraints, and then give out the yaw rate and the acceleration and the vehicle velocity to the estimation part to do the prediction, to give the feedback to the controller, to let the system know what the next step we are going to do. Here is the mathematical part of how to solve this controller, how to solve the problem. First is the vehicle kinematic model is based on this mathematical, and because it's the matrix and it is the nonlinear problem, so we need to do the transformation. First, we need to do the linearization and do the discretization. The linearization is use the Taylor expansion, and discretization is use Euler to get the form in this form. And do the MPC optimizer. First, we need to have the objective function in this one. And the first part is the deviation of the system predicted system and the reference system. It's the first part is illustrates the tracking ability of this controller, and the second part is the continuity of the control, whether we can't like control in this part and next time is have a big deviation. So also select a select variable to control the control increments is in our limitation. So all the tracking step of this MPC system is here. We have the start and the inputs, and then track model discretization and select a point on the reference trajectory. Also have the model calculation and the prediction with the mathematical function I have before, and also calculate the cost function and then do the optimization, and to see whether vehicle position itself is how long is related to the reference target. So if it is very still large or still long enough, we need to calculate again. If the position is same as our target, so we can go out to select to the end. Otherwise, we need to select the next point on the reference trajectory. And here is one example of my result. It is one direction of the intersection, roundabout intersection angle. It's to go the straight. And in this work, we use quadratic programming to solve the optimization problem. So the weighting matrix Q and R, we can see achieve the best performance here, as Q equals to 40 and R equals to 0.8. As we can see here, the longitudinal error and the lateral error also achieve the best performance. It's very small. And my future work is to to research on the cognitive constraints to do the vehicle decision making with the other road users based on NPC problem, and also to solve the non-convex problem next semester. And the next semester is also need to write the dissertation thesis. So this is my work. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. First of all, don't mind, please. Would you go back to the slide number 18? Yes, it's also okay. Number 18, yes. Here. The first four scenario is, I would say, clear for me. Why have you started to investigate the fifth one?
Fifth one?
Yes. The total that you...
The case study 8?
The case study number 5.
Number 5?
Yes.
The E, case study E, because
Yes.
so if we go inside the roundabout, maybe we miss the right exit because
Okay,
yeah.
now I understand that. Then why do you stop? Then you can go it unto infinity. You could go one total round and then forward, one total round and then upwards. So you can, and then you can make 3 circles.
Because of the traffic rules, because we can't like in highway to overtake, it's forbidden in roundabout. So if we miss the right exit, so we need to have a whole circle inside.
What is happening in scenario C when you are missing the exit?
It's another circle and must go out. Yeah, because if you do the overtake in the roundabout, will have influence on other road users, other vehicles.
Okay, thank you very much. Now it's a little bit clearer for me. And the main question here in the language exam.
Yeah.
Do you have? Do you fulfill the requirement?
Not yet, but the next semester I will have the German language exam.
Yeah. Wunderschön. So the situation is that you are in the 6th semester, so that when you plan to write your dissertation?
As I discussed with Mati, maybe next semester.
Okay, but please think about that the process, the home defense and the public defense have time requirement, organizing and everything. Okay, and about the publications,
Yep.
do you fulfill already the requirement?
I have one impact factor journal. It's in the second round review, and after I give back, maybe this month I can get whether it's accepted.
How many publications do you have in total? So many that you don't know.
No, but if this impact factor journal accepted, I fulfill the graduation requirements.
Okay, what I can see in the system now that in the MTMT database we have only 4 publications.
4 publications?
Yes. I think it's a little bit low.
Yeah.
So I would like to advise you to update your MTMT profile.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. And after Roundabout, I would like to ask Hazan to take the floor up. You can start from the beginning.
Yes.
But please try to do the 15 minutes.
Okay, of course. So, good morning everyone. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to briefly introduce you my PhD project, which is all about the urban public transportation service quality improvement using highway decision-making techniques. So, my supervisor is Dr. Salvos Oliver, and I'm trying to cover the following tasks in this presentation today. First of all, the teaching activities and the credits that I obtained during the last semesters. And then I want to move to the research aim and the terms that I have used in this dissertation.
And then in more detail, I would like to introduce my publications so far that I have done with the PhD journey. And after that, the administrative progress, and finally, I would like to show you my future work that I'm trying to do it in the next semesters. So, from the teaching activity, I was teaching the logistic control course for master students, and also I supported the MSc, BSc students for teaching activity. Regarding the courses and the credits, I obtained 161 credits plus 13 this semester, which is total 191 without publication activities and publication activities and thesis preparation. So let me tell you what's the main aim of this PhD project. The main aim is to explore the service quality dimensions, including the priority areas or the importance of each service quality activities in Budapest public transportation. To do so, we need to structured questionnaire, intensive structured questionnaire prepared, and there were more than 1,000 samples collected for this project. So, the next step is to consensus or agreement among different stakeholders, groups, to make a decision about the public transport service quality activities in Budapest. To do so, we collected data from different stakeholders, more specifically public transport users and potential users, more specifically private vehicle users. Then I'm trying to reducing the quality gaps between the quality terms. And after that, find the cause and effect between different terms, tangible and intangible variables. Next, the heterogeneity analysis is a crucial point in this project, so that I'm trying to show you in the next slides. And discover the wide literature regarding the topic. And finally, which is the main point, is developing the hybrid decision methods to gain theoretical and practical implications for public transportation in Budapest. So, why we are considering service quality? This is the main question that, especially urban public transportation. Because the service quality has several characteristics. For example, it's complex, uncertain, and abstract. In addition to that, it is intangible. We cannot test it, or we cannot touch it. Heterogeneity, and it's different from one person to another person. So, inseparability and also perishability. In this way, that's why service quality is a complex and uncertain term to consider, and it is different from one area to another area, from one case study to another case study, and we cannot generalize the results from one case study to other case study. Because also the perception of people is different. So in this research, I'm trying to use the following terms: public involvement and market segmentation techniques. The case study, Budapest case study, which is the contribution that there is no study before considered this type of research. And I'm developing the hybrid decision-making approaches, including mathematical techniques, multi-criteria decision-making, and also statistical techniques. With using technology software, and also the main focus on transport planning and sustainability development project. Then I'm going to move to focus on public transportation in urban area. And after that, as I mentioned, that I will focus on service quality activities. From this, we can measure the service quality attributes by considering perception or expectation service quality, then satisfaction of service with the service quality, and finally, the behavioral intention and loyalty of people regarding the public transportation service quality. So, in this PhD project, I'm trying to fill the following gaps from two main points, from the transport planning point of view and also from the methodological point of view. From the planning point of view, I'm trying to measure the service quality and the gap of service quality between the expectation, the customer expectation and the perception of performance. Then, as I mentioned, that I would like to provide some theoretical and practical implications for Budapest transport providers to improve their service quality. And then there is also another contribution in this project that I would like to improve the lack of public involvement in decision making for sustainable public transportation development. As I told you that I collect data from different users, public transport users and private vehicle users. From the methodological point of view, I'm planning to, I have already done actually, that I developed some theoretical framework and also integrated a new techniques to gain more robust results to make a decision regarding the improvement of public transportation. So, with this, I have several publications. First of all, peer-reviewed journals papers with impact factors. So, I already published two impact factor papers. One of them integrated decision support model for evaluation public transport quality, which in this paper, I was collaborating with my colleagues to improve, or contribute a new method for better decision making, best work method and AHP. And in this paper, we obtained that this decision making technique is robust for smaller sample size of the data. So we can avoid collecting the huge number of data and save time. That's why this method we can say is beneficial for transport providers and decision makers. In the next paper, I investigated the relationship of perceived public transport service quality with satisfaction using hybrid statistical technique, partial structural equation model and multi-group analysis. In this method, there is some benefits that this method is useful for non-normal data, and also we can say it's good for a smaller sample size. In addition to that, multi-group analysis is more accurate method to consider heterogeneity analysis. For example, in this paper, I considered age and gender investigation. And from the third paper that I submitted for transportation with high impact factor, evaluate public transport service quality during the COVID-19 pandemic in Budapest from the perception of different transport users. In this paper, I tried to show the perception of different users, private vehicle users, mainly private vehicle users and public transport users, how they perceive public transportation. This is from the planning point of view, and from the methodological point of view, I try to develop a methodology, important performance map analysis and important performance analysis, which is very useful to identify the priority areas of service qualities in easiest way. From the fourth paper, I investigate the influence of socio-demographic characteristics on public transportation users' perception, satisfaction, and behavior. In this paper, I try to investigate more heterogeneity analysis, socio-economic characteristics regarding the satisfaction, behavioral intention, and perception. The last one is also with editor. I made a comparison between habitual peak users and occasional peak users, also with the hybrid technique. So, regarding the peer-reviewed journal paper is published abroad without impact factor. One of them is under review, which is a systematic literature review with a periodical polytechnic transportation engineering journal. And the next one is published with the Web of Science vehicles regarding the satisfaction of private vehicle users with the private car. So I would like to move to the conferences papers that I published, I participated on. First of all, I participated 2 times in the New York conference. One of them published, another one just I presented my results. And then I presented to others conferences also. So from administrative progress, I have completed 6 semesters and I have achieved 191 credits without publication thesis, and I had a good collaboration with my supervisor via email. Overall of this, it has been an exciting and challenging experience, and I took forward for the following months. And last but not least, I would like to thank for the Dean Office and especially Anna Maria with her support and collaboration. My future work, I will try to get publication with the submitted papers and writing the dissertation in the 3 months and be prepared for the home defense. Thank you.
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to draw your attention that in the MPIT Hungarian publication that there are only 2 publications. Beside on the list, your work seems to be much more fruitful, so I would like to ask you and all the others that please update your MPIT database. If you get close, don't worry, it's natural, ask me and I will help you.
Yeah, some of them actually still under consideration with the EU.
Okay, what was, I could not follow on terribly sorry, it might be my mistake about the language exams.
So regarding language exam, actually I finished studying MSc in UK and I had 6.5 hours. However, it's expired, but
yes.
also I have an Arabic certificate that I studied in Arabic because I am Kurdish.
Okay, so language exams are okay. The second question arises here is the dissertation. You are in the 6th semester. And what is your plan to write the dissertation?
Regarding the dissertation, actually I'm planning to start writing in this summer and doing the home defense hopefully in the middle next semester.
Very good, congratulations. And I would like to draw your attention as well as all the colleagues in the 6th semester. Please keep in mind that the doctoral school needs some time to prepare the home defense, and again after that the review process and to organize the open public defense. It takes some time to consider. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
And now we are running towards to Laila. Please, the floor is yours.
Forward.
Hello everybody. Today I'm going to present the work that I have been doing during the 3 years. And my topic is about analyzing the public involvement in urban transport developments by NCDM methodology. My supervisor is Dr. Sabloch Dorival. During this presentation, I'm going to through this outlines, introduction, then I'm going to present the method that I'm using for my research. I will present the strengths and the weaknesses of the method, the specific characteristics of Parameterized, the identified gaps in the literature review, the methodology used, results, and future research activity. In my research, I'm focusing on 3 pillars, which are policymakers, that we need to provide them consensual models to analyze the real needs of users, passengers, and the community. Then with that, they can analyze and present the expected and the assessment of the current service quality of the public transportation network. And by that, we can increase the attractiveness of public transport by providing the service providers the needed information, and for that we can increase the public transportation ridership ratio, which is the aim of many government decision makers and service providers. And we use the MCPM method, which is Parameterized, which means preference ranking organization method of enrichment evaluations. Parameterized, as many of other methods, it has its own strength and weaknesses, and by the strength of this method is that it eliminates scaling effects between criteria via preference functions, which means that if we have, for example, 2 criteria, one is measuring distance and the other is measuring time, then with this method we can eliminate the scaling effect, and then it can be considered as stable. Then Parameterized provides partial ranking with any loss of information, and here we have 3 kinds of preferences: either preference relation, indifference, and uncomparability. Uncomparability, it's when we cannot make a decision between 2 alternatives. That's why we can go with comprehensive ranking or Parameterized 2 that gives us the net, that calculates the net flow of the alternatives based on the predefined criteria. Parameterized also provides a visualization, which means the cardinal output, where we can analyze the interaction between criteria and alternatives, and here we can identify which are the elements that they have positive interaction or negative interaction. And also we can make the sensitivity analysis and see at the same time the impact of changing the weights on the final decision. For the weaknesses of Parameterized, it's that we don't have any guidance for computing the weights for criteria. That's why all the time we need to combine it with other methods such as AHP, toughness, entropy, etc. And in the case when we have many attributes to evaluate, then it becomes somehow difficult to make the classifications. That's why the solution is to put the attributes in a hierarchical structure. To apply Parameterized, we have to first define the criteria and the alternatives that we need to evaluate. Then, for eliminating the scaling effect, we have 6 preference functions that we can use based on the characteristics of our criteria. And here it's important to mention that in the same model we can use different preference functions, and it does not, and this is it's possible, of course, and it does not impact the result. However, the choice is based on the characteristics of the criteria. Then we need to identify the criteria that needs to be maximized and the ones that we need to minimize. For example, we all need, for example, for the bus station, we need to minimize the distance to the bus station, and we want to maximize the speed. This kind of classification we can make it. For the partial ranking, it's Parameterized 1, which we can calculate the negative and the positive flows. And as I mentioned before, here we have three decisions, which are preference, relation, indifference, and incomparability. For the comprehensive ranking, we go with Promethe 2. Then we can use the visual Promethe software for the cardinal output, which is a Gaia plane that visualizes the interaction between attributes. For the identified gaps in the literature review, we have identified several. Some of them are that Promethe was not deployed in public transportation mode choice analysis, which was interesting to make a study about that to evaluate its applicability in this field. Then the group Promethe aggregation approach was not introduced in any comparative analysis, and it was most of the times group Promethe. It was most of the times for only few decision makers, which in our studies we focus on make a large scale evaluation, which is also a contribution for the research. And yes, and for the last point, which is criteria weight assignment, which is already a weakness of Promethe. That's why we need to combine it with other MCDM methods such as AHP or TOPSIS. For the methodology, I'm working on service quality attributes. This hierarchical structure has two levels. For the first level, we have 5 criteria, which are applicability, directness, reliability, time, availability, and speed. And for each element, we have some sub-criteria which we evaluate. For example, for Promethe, we are focusing only on the level 2. For the first study, it was about a comparative analysis of homogeneous groups' preferences by using aggregation of individual priorities and aggregation of individual judgments of a group Promethe, HP Promethe model. Here we elaborated a new aggregation of individual judgments, group Promethe, to evaluate urban public transport. And this model, as to the best of our knowledge, is the first model applied for Promethe method. And yes, and for the second point, we make comparative analysis with the conventional group Promethe. We could make a sensitivity analysis for Promethe method, which is not possible for the conventional model. Yes, for the methodology, we have made for the comparative analysis 2 sections. The first one was for the aggregation of individual priorities, which was calculating the first part about AHP. Then we calculate for each evaluator Promethe values, and then we make the aggregation. For the second new introduced approach, which is the AEG, we aggregated the values first, and then we computed the Promethe values. And in this approach, we could use the Gaia plane, which is not possible to make it with the conventional Promethe method. And then for the results verification, we could we get similar ranking for the alternatives for both approaches, which means or approves the applicability of the aggregation of individual judgments of a group Promethe. This new model is reducing time of the analysis and data classification. We applied it on a large-scale application, which was compared to the previous work presented in other research, and we could make the sensitivity analysis. For the second study, it was about analyzing university students' multi-choice preferences using a hybrid HP group Promethe method. This study focuses on university students' preferences because they are the ones that shaping the use of public transportation in the community. Then we conducted a comprehensive survey for AHP and Promethe. AHP was for the assignment of weights to criteria. Then we evaluated the service quality of available modes that are here in Budapest, which are underground mode, tram and bus. And as a result, it was the preferences of the underground mode over other modes. Here for this study, for the university students, we could get the data from many different universities in Budapest. The age repartition is the age between 17 and 25 was the most section of our data, and the gender repartition was almost similar, equal. So here in this study, we had a hierarchical structure of criteria. Then we made the pairwise comparison for attributes to get weights for evaluating criteria. Then we get through the AHP Promethe questionnaire. After the calculation of AHP elements, and then we went for individual Promethe 1 and 2, and for the aggregation of these values to get the global evaluation, we used the mean net flows aggregation. The result of this study was the methodology adopted led to similar results accrued in previous statistical research, and this method reflects the
we speed up because time is very much good.
Okay. The method reflects the impacts of underground mode over the others, and we have the adopted method cost less effort and time. For the third study, it was about party model for the party Promethe model for the analysis of public transport mode choice. Here we elaborated a fuzzy approach, and we combined it with Promethe. For the contribution, we had tangible and intangible attributes evaluation in the same model. We eliminated the divergence of opinions between evaluators, and we get similar results compared to the conventional group Promethe method. For the publications, I have one non-impact factor journal, which a paper which was cited 9 times. I have another which I was involved in with other colleagues. And recently I have published a comparative analysis of homogeneous groups in May 2022. And I have participated in 2 conferences. And for future research, now we are working on strengthening the method for other models, and we are going with data collection. And yeah, thank you for your attention.
Thank you for speeding up your presentation. My question would be regarding to your languages now, as all from the others.
Okay, like I have English language certificate from the center from Morocco. So if it's like enough, like it's, I don't know if in the university they require specific certificates or.
Yes, we have a conversation paper, and you have to check if your language certificate is approved by the Hungarian National Language Certificate Office.
And how can I make sure of that?
There is a web page, but please write the email and send it.
Okay.
Second language exam?
Second language, like my native is Arabic. I speak French, but like in Morocco we study in French. But like, is it necessary to have a certificate?
Yes, some sort of certificate is very necessary. Hungary is a very bureaucratic nation.
So I have to get a test.
Okay, we will discuss it later on. And the second one about the publications. I haven't found your profile in MDM, the Hungarian scientific database. Are you in?
No,
Come on, you are in the 6th semester.
Like I hadn't been.
We have to solve this problem, otherwise we are not going to finish your PhD.
Okay.
Okay?
Yes.
Thank you very much. And then we are going to jump to Talal Al-Safia. Please take the presentation.
Okay, okay, this is yours. Camera.
Hello everyone, my name is Talal Al-Safia. I am from Jordan. I am a PhD student in my 3rd year. My research field is related to both automatic self-loosening under the supervision of Dr. Lazar Lobar in the Department of Railway Vehicles and Vehicle Structure Analysis. Today I will give an introduction about my research, what's the goal of the research, research detail, methodology, experimental work, result and conclusion. Ball map joint is one type of threaded fastener, which is used to hold mechanical components together. The joint consists of bolt with a mating nut, 2 washers, 2 or more members that are clamped together using the clamping force. To generate the clamping force, we use the tightening process, in which the input torque is estimated based on the material yield strength of the bolt. And during the tightening, we can measure the generated preload using tension sensor or angle control, in which we tighten the nut, then we make a mark, then we introduce third nut turn. Also, we can measure using bolt prolongation using a micrometer, and the most used one is torque control using normal torque wrench, which is most widely used in the industry. What's the definition of the automatic self-loosening? We refer to automatic self-loosening to the loss of the generated preload that used to hold the component together during the service time. As we can see here, the preload is decreased during as we increase the number of cycles during the service time, and this loss can cause problems like noise, instability of the structure, complete failure, and some spectacular consequences that can lead to accidents and can increase the maintenance cost for the structure. Example for that, as we can see here, that on the highway, wheel completely detached from the vehicle, jump to the opposite lane, and hit the vehicle, and you can see the picture after this accident happened. So it is a serious accident. Another accident can be related to the coast. As we can see here in the tram, this bolt completely gets lost and makes short circuit in the tram bogie. There is 2 types of loosening to happen: rotational loosening and non-rotational loosening. The rotational loosening, there is a relative movement between the male and the female thread in the untightening direction. So eventually we get to the loosening. The non-rotational is related to the material specification. So it's about gasket creep or joint creep, stress relaxation, or different thermal expansion of the component. What kind of problem that we can face? During the tightening, the initial generated preload is not certain. So if you have a group of bolts, 5 bolts symmetrical, and you tighten, same torque, it's not necessarily you have the same value of the preload. This is one part. And during the service time, the loosening mechanism is not certain. Which loosening mechanism we will face, we are not sure. And the main indication of loosening process is the clamping force degradation. So what happened to a tightened bolt during the service time that face static load or face a dynamic load? The dynamic load can be periodical in time or stochastic in time, which is a typical example in the vehicle industry. In the industrial application, from the technology point of view, manufacturer prescribed to use a new bolt washer not after disassembly. But what happened in reality, that dismantled fasteners are reused related to the availability of the fastener, ecological reason, or economical reason, or even more poor maintenance situation. From the theory, the tightening torque, the relation between torque and tension, governed by this most used equation, in which the torque is equal to the preload multiplied by the geometrical and frictional parameters. Another experimental approach is the nut factor, in which an experimental factor is determined to estimate the overall of the friction in the joint. So during the tightening, up to 20% of the introduced tightened torque can generate tension in the fastener, and the remaining is lost to overcome the friction under the head and at the thread level. So the goal in the research that we wanted to study the variation of the preload during repeated tightening, and we wanted to study the variation of the friction on the thread and under the nut, and how the geometrical deformation happened to the thread and on the top of the nut. So we elaborated an experiment to study the repeated tightening releasing on the same bolt, to study the variation in the preload, the friction at the given places, also to compute the nut factor. The experimental factor, it was that we deal with the two surface finish for the bolt, black and grease coated surface finish, 3 sizes, fastener, M6, M8, M10. For each size, there is a tightening torque. 4 cases of lubrication, as you see, dry, solid molybdenum, and oil. And we can see here in the flowchart that, for example, the as you see reflect the out of place state, what we get from the manufacturer or from the store. We don't treat the surface. We start the tightening, so we tighten, measure the preload, then release. And this cycle happened 20 times for each bolt, and for each case, we used the 20 new bolt. Look. So here we can see the result. Each point in this graph is a mean of 20 millimeters. The line shows the variation of the generated preload during repeated tightening. In the first row, the black finish surface, and in the second row is the zinc coated. The color represents the 3 sizes of the fastener, and each column is a case of lubrication. Same method, we calculated the nut factor. In the same situation, each point is representing a mean of 20 millimeters, and we can see the pretty much interesting case in the oil one, that no matter different tightening torque, different sizes, we have pretty consistent result. So to sum up, the generated preload, it's mainly influenced by the combination of the contact surface quality and the geometrical deformation. The contact of the surface state is more dominant than the geometrical deformation. So the conducted research progressed during the 3rd year that we elaborated a method for measuring the preload for the antenna size, such way that there is a sensor manufactured in the department. We use a pressed hydraulic along with commercial sensor to calibrate that one, so we could do the experiment on the antenna size. We kept the investigation up to 9,600 measurements were made. We defined the range of the preload for different cases, and default condition, we computed the nut factor. A scientific paper has been submitted to Impact Factor Journal. We have the first review, and further scientific paper are being prepared for publication. Thank you for your
Thank you very much for the presentation and giving the time. My question would be about the language exams. Could you please carry some first topic?
first one will be my language, direct language. The second one, before the home defense, I will get an English certificate.
No, but
This is my target.
this is your plan. Very good. You just finished your sixth semester. You have showed us your publications. It's quite optimistic. So I think that it's not a problem. But you need to know that the impact factor journal will be essential.
Yes. It's the remaining for the qualification, it's only one remaining.
Okay, and after that you can start to prepare your dissertation.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for listening.
And based on my schedule, unfortunately, Hassan Bashar hasn't appeared, I believe. No? So now I would like to announce a small break, and we would continue the second session, and going to be after I would like to ask those who have made the presentation, if you have time, to come back and see the presentation of the second session. The second session, the colleagues are in the second semester, so you might have some advice then how to continue, how to improve their work. Thank you very much.
even shorter. Okay, hello everyone. Good morning or close good afternoon. I'm Anas Al-Tani, and I will be talking to you about my research topic, emerging autonomous and shared autonomous vehicles into road network under the supervision of Dr. Adam Phillips. First of all, I will walk you through the outlines of this presentation. First of all, the administrative progress. Then we have the research topic, an overview about the research topic, and the aims of the research, the conducted research and progress, as well as the publications and the future work. For the administrative progress, I have completed so far 63 credits with this semester. I'm in my second semester, which is first year. Regarding the teaching activity, I participated in the first semester in the Environmental Effects of Transport PhD course, and I was able, after finishing, to update the material of the environmental effects for transport systems for the master students. And in this or previous semester, if we can call it, I participated in teaching some lectures of this course for master students. Then we have for the research topic, which is the emerging autonomous and shared autonomous vehicles into a road network. An overview over the for this topic in general, we have autonomous driving basically are much developed right now, and they became more practical technology in recent years. Therefore, it's expected to happen, it's expected to face a significant transition from conventional vehicles into autonomous vehicles. Therefore, because of their benefits, of course, like the increasing safety, saving travel time, increasing the level of comfort, as well as lowering road emissions. My research forecasts and estimates autonomous vehicles ownership ratios on the basis of GDP per capita, as well as I will investigate the environmental impact of this emerging technology with and without the presence of demand management strategies or schemes. Now, for the aims of this research, the first one is the potential benefits on and impact of this emerging technology vary substantially by its share of the market. Therefore, we will, and we already did that, like we estimated the autonomous vehicle ownership rates here in Hungary. Also, we modified the used model, the growth model we used, in order to count for even more factors to have more realistic estimations. Then I will, investigating the most appropriate pricing scheme, static and dynamic, in the presence of autonomous and shared autonomous vehicles. And last but not least is investigating the impact of such technologies on the environment in general, with considering the role of demand management strategies in general. Now, for the conducted research and progress, this is the first part of the conducted research. As you can see here, we estimated using the Gompers function, which is a growth model, the projected growth rates of automated passenger vehicles in Hungary. And we did that basically using recent using the historical patterns of civilian vehicles here in Hungary. And this was based on the per capita GDP as well as the yearly ownership rates here in Hungary. We found that the Hungarian motorization market will reach the saturation by 2067 in an optimistic scenario, and it will reach the saturation level by AVs, of course, in 2076 in a moderate scenario, I would say. And of course, because we investigate 3 scenarios, it won't be saturated by AVs here in Hungary, not before 2100 in a pessimistic situation. Also, like the main contribution of this study is basically through developing a mathematical model, and this model, it can be easily applied to any study case, and it can be also modified for future data or future development in this technology. Now for the second research, which was also presented by Muhammad, my colleague. It's about road pricing schemes, different road pricing schemes in the presence of autonomous and shared autonomous vehicles. We investigate basically three main scenarios in 2030 and in 2050. These scenarios considering the mixed traffic, AV focused and shared AV focused. And we also investigated the three different road pricing schemes, and they are dynamic or static. We have the bridge toll, we have distance-based tolls, as well as the link-based tolling scheme. Now for the list of publications, for the first research topic, we have already conducted two scientific articles, and they are submitted to one for a conference and one for an international journal. And for the second topic, we already generated, or we created three articles. Two of them are submitted for an impact factor journals. One is accepted, thankfully, and the one is under review in the research in transportation economics. And the third one is already submitted for the periodical technical and transportation engineering. Now for the future research, in the next semester, I will continue my research on estimating autonomous vehicle ownership rates in Hungary, considering even more parameters in order to have more realistic estimations for the autonomous vehicle ownership rates here in Hungary, such as considering hysteresis. And also, I'm planning to work on investigating what the best road emissions in the presence of autonomous vehicles and shared autonomous vehicles, with or without, like road pricing or demand management schemes in general. And thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And as after we are looking, we are looking for the students that are finished their second semester. So thank you very much. I would like to also ask about the language exam, please.
Yes. I already have my IELTS exam is activated. Also, like for the Arabic, I do have certificates from my university that, like, I obtained it in Arabic. It's my native language as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Do you have any questions from the audience or any remark from the more experienced colleagues?
Please, it would be so appreciated.
No, thank you very much.
Doing good. Thank you so much, guys.
And then I would like to ask Debra Jima to make a presentation.
What I would like to ask Debra, if you could make the presentation on the left side of the board, because then the camera, you can see your face with your back.
So I want to present my research progress report of this year. So my name is Devon Adame, and the topic of my research is impacts of road infrastructures on traffic congestion, accidents, environment, and the economy. The content of my presentation is the activities that I undertake in the last 1 year, courses, administrative progress, and research-related issues. So those are the basic activities. The first one is I taught a lot of road safety courses for MS students. I prepare teaching material for these road safety courses, and there is something that lecturing and the technical assistance for my advisors and so on. Most of the courses that I take are basically those courses. First one is Transport Economics 1. So the integrations within my research work is economic implication of congestion and accidents. Transport technologies basically that emphasize on models, simulation and the modeling of traffic congestions using PTV vision. Transport informatics application for ITs and the database plannings for accidents, that basically for accident data management. Research techniques, that is for write-up and articles from that of selection of journal to the publications. Passenger transport systems, that is a mode of transport and the impacts on congestions, basically it has their own relation with my research works. Environmental effect of transport, since my topics deals about environment, there is a congestion of effects and its externalities on environment. Transport economics 2 is these economic models for road traffic accidents and so on. So those are the course taken. So administrative progress, I achieved that of 2 semesters, or what called 1 year. Number of credits that achieved is 63. Number of elaborated scientific result is 3 and above. Number of possible problems seen with my advisor, still there is no any problems in collaboration with my advisors. So research activities, mostly is the topic of my research, as I said before, that is impacts of road infrastructure on traffic congestion, accident, and so on. So its ultimate goal is to improve safeties in transportation system. So a specific objective is identifying the determinant factor of traffic congestions and accidents, building a black spot identification approach at macroscopic levels, identify the interaction of road traffic congestion and accident for selected intersection zones using that of PTV vision. And the last objective, that specific objective, is analyzing the impacts of traffic congestion on environmental pollutions and the economy. So most of those are research works that's under progress. The first one is the impacts of road geometric formation on traffic crash and its severities. So this, the main objective of this research work is analyzing the impacts of road geometric formations or road traffic crash. So this research work is accepted with a major revision, so still it is under progress on that of sustainability journals. So the second one is a review of environmental impact of motorized vehicles on humans. So basically this is a review works. The main objective is to define the impacts of these motorized vehicles on human due to that of air pollutions and the related things. So it also accepted for conference. The conference name is that of the 8th International Conference Trained in Agricultural Engineering. That's under progress in Czech Republic. The third one is empirical models and the road surface roughness effect on vehicular speed at horizontal curved road geometry. So the main objective is to investigate the relationship between speeds and the road roughness at a curved road geometries, particularly across the design period of a given road. So it is also accepted before 3 or 4 months, but due to lack of financial issues, there is that this paper is declined, or what you call it, withdrawn from the journal. So other research work is, even if it is not in my scope, but I try to see that of the impacts of long-term impacts of this SARS or COVID-19, particularly in Budapest city. So this article also already finished and submitted for journals, and are waiting for reviewer reporters. So the plan of my next semester is review detailed and relevant literatures to learn more about the black spots identification approach, developing new approach for black spot identification at macroscopic levels, traffic data collections at black spots and selected intersections, data organization and the processing, practicing that of PTV visms to simulate road traffic congestion and its interaction with traffic crash at selected intersection zone. And I try to train myself that of PTV vism to fill my relative gaps or defining those. So thank you very much. These are all my presentations.
Thank you very much. So my question would be about the language exams. What kind of language exam do you have?
I think I do have, there's some English language. I don't know the name for now.
Okay.
But I do have certificate for that.
Okay. Thank you very much. I would like to ask the audience if anyone has questions to develop. Any suggestion for improvement? No? Then thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
And now I would like to ask our colleague Hussein Al-Zaid to make his presentation on the line.
Okay, good morning everyone. My name is Hussein Al-Zaid. I want to talk about my first oral presentation. As you can see here, we talk about introduction, the review, and research overview, and after I talk about the requirement status, and last but not least, I will talk about my plan for 22-23. First of all, to introduce myself, my name is Hussein. I am a captain in the Joint Armed Forces. I am in the Department of Railway Vehicles and Vehicle System Analysis. This is my first year. I finished my master's degree from Open University 2019, and I finished my bachelor from Jordan University. And I worked before I came here as a teacher at the Prince Hussein College from 2019 to 2021. My research area is the additive manufacturing technology. It's a little bit away from the quality of transportation, but my deep research in the additive manufacturing technology for vehicles parts. And my title of research topic is the investigation of residual stress in the additive manufacturing technology. At the beginning, let's take an overview about the additive manufacturing in the automotive field. As you can see here, that this year it's about $3 million US dollar, and by 2028 it will rise to 12 million US dollar. And here we can see this is the BMW M2, and this is the first bumper, front bumper that they made from total additive manufacturing technology, and from the exhibition 2018. And here we can see the current view of the additive manufacturing in the vehicle industry, and what's the future plan for the additive manufacturing. So it's like going sky high, and it will be the trend of this era. Let's back to the overview of my research field. There's a study by the Fairfax and Stilzing. They did the study data from American Society of Metals to see the failures in the industry. And they collected 147 articles between 1970 and 2000. And they found that 75% of these failures related to residual stresses. So it's like an important issue that the researchers have to make a deep investigation for the residual stresses in the additive manufacturing technology. Let's take to this pictures how to handle the stress like a dog. Like if you can't eat it or play with it, then be with it and walk away. But as engineers, if we can't eat it, if we can't remove the residual stress from the part, or we can't play with it, we can't take the advantage of residual stress, because some residual stress are important in the part, like the compressive residual stress, but we're not gonna feel it as engineers, so we try to minimize it as much as possible. So this is my research field for the additive manufacturing. As you can see here, there's many parameters. They are control the mechanical properties for the parts, like the material, different materials with different specification, and the structural parameters like infill density, raster angle, part of orientation, and printing pattern. One of the most important parameters is the manufacturing parameters that related to the printers, like the layer thickness, the printing temperature, printing speed, and platform temperature. And the restriction with this investigation and this field that there's many of printers, they are industrial printers, so there's many constraints about the speed of printing, many constraints about the temperature of printing, so we try to find like a way to take these parameters and make investigation about that. And the best way like to do that, we are looking for an open source printers that you can modify like the parameter as much as you can. Now talk about my achieved requirements. I published 5 papers in 5 different journals. 2 of them are non-Hungarian journals, and 3 of them the Hungarian journals. And here, submitted papers. I submitted 4 papers, and I'm waiting for the results or the decision from the editorial chief. And here, the required status. At the beginning, I want to thank Dr. Adel Turuk, because at the first week we enrolled the program in the course of research technique. He drew this slide on the board, and he clarified the status and the program schedule for the 4 whole years. And as you can see, here is the credit requirement, and here you can find my place. For the publication requirement also, publication point, he also did this. That was the point that we have to get, how to calculate the point, what the difference between peer-reviewed, non-peer reviewed, and you can find me here. So as a junior, like PhD student, I think it will be enough to do this in my year. I'm not senior like your guys. You have a lot of publications, have a lot of work. And the research in progress, I submitted a paper, conference paper in quality production improvement. It will be next week in Poland. I'll go with my supervisor and some colleagues. And I submitted the paper to DAS conference, and it will be in Greece from 22 to 23. And the last one will be in SACO conference. It will be here in Budapest in September 22. My next year plan, I want to use the numerical simulation to find the printing parameters that affect the residual stress. And like all of us know that the numerical solutions and softwares, they are the trend of this time, and they help a lot to make precise results, save time, save money for the research. And after that, I will try to using the stress method. It's like a method. It's used like to determine the residual stress in the parts. And after I finish these 2 things, I will try to publish a paper in an impact factor journal. And thank you for your listening.
Thank you very much for the very impressive presentation.
Thank you, sir.
And I would say the usual questions about language exams.
I have my English language exam, like certificate, IELTS, and I have my Arabic certificate, and I have finished 2 levels of Hungarian language. So I think
it's more than enough. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
I would like to draw your attention that you have already participated and going to participate in a lot of conferences. Meanwhile, the midterm material impact factor paper is very important in essentially
Yeah, that is one.
school. So I would like to suggest to move forward from the conference. You know, I know it's very fun to travel.
Yeah, but you have to do a lot of work before the traveling.
Yes.
Yeah.
Any question or remark from the audience?
I will appreciate that if you want to ask it, if you are asking, sorry.
So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeff.
And now I would like to ask anybody who was a composer to make his presentation, please.
So I may start.
Yes, please start.
Good afternoon or good morning still, everyone. I will talk about my research. I am Vladimir Toas, I'm from Ecuador, and it's my first year, and my supervisor is Domokos Estergakis. And the topic of my research is the comparison of heuristic algorithms and a framework development for an activity chain optimization. I will talk a bit more what I have done all this year. First, some activities I have done is to develop some material for a smart city and intelligent transport system courses, and also I took part in a folk project with two different topics in these two last semesters. The one was about the comparison of heuristic optimization methods, and the second the use of and assessment of the activity chain optimization in mass data. I took last semester the suggested courses from the faculty, and as many of you, so I don't think it's something relevant. And for next semester also I will take the suggested subjects. Some administrative progress that I have done now, of course, in the second semester, I took already 68 credits, and regarding the language, I have the TOEFL IBT for English, and I'm a Spanish native speaker, and additional I took also 2 semesters of Hungarian. Some scientific results, unfortunately, I have written just 2 papers till now, and they are not still submitted, but I'm working on it, and we're wishing to submit it soon. And now I will focus on my research topic. What is the activity chain optimization? It's an extension of the traveling salesman problem that it's an optimization problem. And basically it optimizes an activity-based trip chaining of travelers. And it takes into account the activities of the travelers, and this activity could be flexible or fixed. And when we consider an optimization problem with flexible activities, the complexity of these activities increases the computational times of the solution process. Regarding the literature about it, there is a shorted reported literature about it, employing heuristic algorithms to solve the optimization problem. So it's quite novel approach to use heuristic algorithms, machine learning. And as far as we know, there is no research conducted before. So the main objective of my research is to compare these meta-heuristic algorithms and evaluate the performance of them, and basically pick one that will perform best. And for a future, this could be used in a activity demand model, or could be an application for a traveler that could be replaced, maybe Google Maps, for example. So what I have done is, in these 2 semesters, according to a research plan that we agreed with my supervisor, is to first define a list of potential use for heuristic algorithms. On literature, we found around 200 algorithms, so we had to pick at least 5 to compare them. And last semester, I was working on a framework on Python to create for this activity chain optimization that when it's finished in the debugging process will be uploaded in GitHub and will be available for everyone. This is part of my research, so this is the graph of all the algorithms, and this is the factor that affect the use of the algorithms, and basically this is the popularity along the years, and justifying how the heuristics are becoming more and more important now and more useful. Last semester I focused on literature review of the traveling salesman problem using heuristic algorithms. Also to compare these heuristic algorithms based on different features, and basically to work with this activity chain optimization framework, I had to use travel data, survey data, hotspot survey data, but the problem with this data is that it's in mid-level geographical zone, so it's a traffic analysis zone, but to use it in this framework we need this aggregated data that it should be coordinate points, so I developed an algorithm to convert from traffic analysis zones to coordinate points. And of course I developed the framework in Python and writing a paper about it also. This is the assessment of the activity chain optimization using the first heuristic or the base heuristic, that is genetic algorithms. I use data from Sacramento hotspot travel survey, and well, according the size of the activity chain increases, of course the computation time of the optimal solution will increase also, but the genetic algorithm will reduce compared to another method. And for future research, according to my research plan, besides genetic algorithms, I will include more algorithms. Now in the list is particle swarm optimization and colony optimization, and it will be included in the framework and compared and evaluated, and this will be published also. For now, I'm continuing in the continuation on this framework development, debugging this framework, integrating these heuristic algorithms, and also we're planning to include a utility function on this activity chain optimization. And at the end, we will evaluate the performance of them. And I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and congratulations for the very good presentation. Any questions from the audience side? No? Yeah, just two more questions. One is about the language exams.
I have the TOEFL IBT for English and in Spanish native speakers, so I don't know if I need an exam for it. And I have
some sort of certificate is very essential.
Okay, so I will see how I get this. And also two semesters for Hungarian, so I think I will get a certificate for it also.
Okay, congratulations. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we are going towards to really Vishwa. Please.
Alright, hello everyone, good morning. And this opportunity, I will present my progress report. And my research is about creation of mobility packages based on patterns of user groups. And my supervisor is Dr. Domokos Estelakis. And first of all, I will tell you about my activities in the last semester. So in the teaching activities, I'm doing the development and preparations for future teaching activities, and also some courses and research integration. I got the discrete choice modeling from Transport Economics 1 and also Transport Policy, and some statistical methods from the statistics in transportation. And for the administrative progress, so I have achieved 66 credits, and also the language exam with IELTS C1. And the collaboration with my supervisor is, I could say it's great. So my topic would be the mobility as a service, and this is the main framework of mobility as a service. So we have user here and mass operator and mobility service, and the connection between user and mass operator will be transportation and also mobility packages, and also the connection between mass operator and mobility service provider is asset capacity and mobility contracts. So in this research, I will focus on the user side, and these are the research questions of my research. The first one is how to create user groups and what differences can be revealed. And the second one is how's the preferences of users toward mass aspects. And the last one is how to create mobility packages, how is the acceptance, and also could the acceptance rates be increased. So the general aims of my research would be to reach a more in-depth analysis of creating mobility packages with taking into account user preferences. And this is the state-art uniqueness and novelty of the chosen topic. So the previous research, they are only talk about the travel pattern of users when they deal with mobility packages, and when they deal with mass preferences, they only deal with general preferences and preference toward mobility packages. And my research will be mobility packages will be based on characteristics of user groups. And for the mass preferences, I will take into account the aspects of mobility as a service application, and also I will try to reveal the heterogeneity analysis. And also, I will try to analyze the mobility packages acceptance, and also I will include some latent behavioral variables. And this is the proposed outline of my thesis. So the first one is the preferences toward mass aspects, and the second one is the heterogeneity of potential mass users. And thesis number 3 will be creation of mass packages. The 4 is acceptance to mass packages, and also the thesis 5 is policy intervention to escalate mass packages adoption. And this is the framework of the thesis 1. So I have some aspects of mobility as a service here, and then I have some physiological latent variables here, and also I will try to connect the aspects and also the latent variables with users' attitude of using mass. And also this is the basically this is the technology acceptance model. So we have 2 modulator variables here. So instead of using the socio-demographic variables, I will try to include 2 new variables here. It is called travel captivity and also shared mobility use. And also this is the general construct of technology acceptance models, and also I add some new constructs here. There are 4 constructs. They are new to the model. And this is the proposed modeling framework for the thesis number 2. So in this number 2, I will try to reveal the heterogeneity analysis. And in this case, I will perform the latent cluster analysis. And there are some activities that related to the research in the last semester. The first one is the literature review paper called a systematic literature review of the mobility as a service, examining the socio-technical factors in mass adoption. And it has been submitted, is now under review in an impact factor journal named Travel Behavior and Society. And also, mass survey has been distributed among college students, and we have 686 responses, and general population is being distributed. And today, I'm doing the modeling trial for the second journal papers. It's titled Exploring Aspects of Mass Based on Individual Preferences, and first conference paper. And both of them, I have written the introduction, literature review, and methodology parts. And this is the plans for future research. In the next semester, general survey will be finished, and also the heterogeneity analysis will be conducted, and some papers will be submitted, especially for the second journal and for the first conference paper. And some papers will be prepared for the third journal paper, mobility as a service adoption with respect to groups differences, and also the fourth journal paper, heterogeneity in private model choice based on mass concept, and also the second conference paper, and some methodology that you must be really familiar with this. Okay, thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you for putting us forward, and thank you for your presentation. I congratulate you because it's very related at the end of the second semester. Somebody has already filled out the model, so congratulations. About language exams, I would like to ask you.
I graduated from Indonesian University for master degree, and also I have IELTS test C1.
Okay, so it's going to be okay. And for the publication, congratulations, and I hope that it's going to be a problem.
Hopefully.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And
You're
now
welcome.
I would like to continue and ask Omar Ahrez to make his presentation. Please.
Good day, everybody. I hope you're doing well. Today I'm going to present to you my PhD topic, assessing operator, aviation operator, total load, and evaluating logical decision making. I am a first year, I'm a first year PhD student in the Department of Aeronautics and Naval Architecture. My supervisor is Dr. Daniel Rojas, the head of department, and my co-supervisor is Dr. Kokel. Here you can see the content of my presentation. So my topic about assessing operator total load or aviation operator total load. Since we are in a very technological and rapid technological advancement in the vehicle system, so there are a lot of complex human factor and machine interface. And this interaction also with the rapid advancement, will this rapid advancement solve some questions, solve a lot of problems. However, it created more complicated questions and problems. Due to that, we have to assess the role of operator, since it is changing from controlling the aircraft, from controlling the vehicle, to only monitoring it, from active to passive monitoring. So my research here is focusing on the need to investigate, assess, and evaluate the aviation operator. And of course, focus on the human factors, situation awareness, total load, and decision-making process. Nowadays, currently in the aviation system, 80% of the accidents and incidents in aviation happen due to human factors, because also of the rapid technological development in the highway automated system. So operators nowadays have less workload to do. He don't have to do a lot of work, as you can see. But he has to handle a lot of tasks, and based on that, he will receive a huge amount of information, and his state or mental state will be fluctuating. It will be also rising. And based on that also, this communication will be provided between, for example, tower control and pilots, or between pilots and other pilots,
Due to that, the research gap here is to find out that there is a necessity to assess the operator actions. Due to that, we have to create a balance between the aviation operators and create a model for operator total load. So the objective of my research is generally, or the main objective, is to create a general operator load monitoring and management system for automated system and in aviation, of course, and to evaluate the operator total load and multiple decision process and criteria. To do this, we have to perform some subjective, as mentioned earlier. Firstly, create a new model and concept based on the old one and the original one. Then conduct some subjects and objective measurements in our flight simulator and ATM lab here in our department in PME. Based on the data again in this simulation, we will investigate unique aspects and which we already done for the understanding in aviation communication and automation level in aviation. And we will implement a lot of decision-making process, like multi-criteria decision-making method, and human factor as a classification, and other, of course, other conceptual methodologies will be implemented. And we will create and build a new concept for operator in nowadays aviation systems. Regarding my academic activity, during last year, I have published, or not published, I have submitted 15 research articles. 3 of them which of Web of Science Impact Factor Index under revision, and 1 book chapter was published, and 2 international journal papers which already in under revision also, and 9 spring law conference proceedings which will also accept will be published soon. I have also integrated 5 exams with Dr. Adam Birish in his subjects during the last previous year. I have delivered 2 lectures, air transport safety course, 1 lecture, and flight safety course, another lecture. I have forgot to mention I have also delivered a lecture in Dr. Adam course also in environmental effect and transport, so another lecture. And I have participated in participation in Erasmus Plus project in Turkey, the Technical University. I have also submitted a project in the same aim of my thesis for the Institute of Transport Science with the proposal title of assessing the same title of my thesis, assessing the operator and total load and evaluating this aviation total decision making, or decision making, the same purpose. I have also accomplished and obtained 73 credits in 17 subjects during the last year. I served as the symposium assistant in 9 international international conferences, and also as a executive committee member. I have also currently served as a editorial officer in the International Journal of Aviation Science and Technology. Regarding the result of the conducted research, the most important one, firstly, I have conducted 2 questionnaires study, first based on the aviation communication misunderstanding in aviation, and based on the automation. Based on this, aviation communication collected 110 responses from aviation operator, pilot, and air controllers in a teamwork group, and from 44 countries, and from aviation automation 115 responses from also pilots and air controllers and other aviation-related fields regarding some automation profile like implementing CPDLC, control pilot, data link communication. As you can see here, highlighted the distribution of the operator origin during around the world. Of course, that was a teamwork based on some people from the field. And some questions regarding the implementation of language, since aviation uses some phraseology, not the exact standard English, so we have to investigate how the language will affect the operators and their origin. Another also thing is the implementing of automation like CPDLC and how to affect also this the job security for their future. Another important, and maybe for the most important one here, is the creating the total decision-making time model, which was developed based on the time required for aviation operator. It consists here from 4 parameters. First, the time to understand and evaluate the situation, the time to take a decision, and time to review it, and then lastly, the time to react.
In the aeronautical decision making, the decision should be very timely. So based on that, there must be some mathematical approaches, and this is some mathematical approaches for the aviation decisions in very abnormal situations. Regarding also MCDM, as I mentioned, I applied analytical theory decision making. Specifically, I applied the HB in first one in operator total load. I have investigated two-level hierarchy of operator total load, as mentioned before, the same pilot main load. Evaluated 52 evaluator of pilots and electrical controllers. Grouped them from into three groups: skilled pilot, skilled pilot, and electrical controllers. And you can see here the discrepancies among the vision between all the profiles, all the three profiles. And this is only an empirical result. The second multiple application is the air transport project quality assessment in three-level hierarchy here. And you can see that evaluate the weight and critical criteria for the supply quality side of the air transport project of 22 evaluator, 11 pilots, and there are 11 air traffic controllers. And there are some similarities in the first level. However, with going in details, we can see there are some discrepancies in the vision, which is the main aim of using the analytical hierarchy process. Lastly, I also applied assessment of unmanned aeronautical vehicle UAV operator using combining the human factor analysis and classification system with the AXP. Based on that, 16 evaluators participated in two-level hierarchy. And you can see the switch is moved based on that here. And of course, it was that group based on the license. However, it was tricky because the licensing system is not the same in all over the world. Here's the first level of the hierarchy between the opinions for the operators. And this is the second level of hierarchy between the operators. During the last year, I have also prepared and suggested some of these topics points. Firstly, based on the conceptual models development, which I have already discussed and created some, modified some of models like correct total load models, which I mentioned some of them, and Wickens information models, also Inslee load models, situational awareness models, a lot of models. I have also introduced new methodologies using multi-critical decision making in aviation, showing the point of view of aviation operator in development the situation. Modified mathematical approach, as I showed, for the total subject decision making time, and including the situation awareness, decision making, decision reviewing, and performance. I also went to do some simulation experiment measurements in the flight simulator in our department in the ATM lab. Based on that, I will need to validate and verify the results based on real data. Lastly, I will create operational load management as well. In the near future, I'm willing to firstly perform the measurements in flight simulator as mentioned in our department. I will validate it and verify the data and compare them with real data measurement, maybe using single engine like Cessna aircraft data. And of course, based on that, I will build the operational load management system. As you can see, I'm the author of 15 research articles. As I mentioned before, most of them is still under review, over 2 already published, but soon will be published. These are the rest. Thank you for your
Thank you very much, Umar, for your presentation and try to have the audience. If there is any question or remark.
From my side, English.
I would like to ask who is your supervisor?
So my supervisor is Dr. Daniel Rufat, but my supervisor is Dr.
Yes, that's what I want to understand. It is very good that you have a supervisor that is clear with your topic. Sometimes it helps a lot.
Which I thank him a lot because he's also a pilot cadet, and because of him and because of the teamwork, we could handle the survey.
I'm glad that I don't have to introduce your supervisor that's missing. First time you meet each other. Okay. One question that I would like to ask about the language exams.
Since as I said here, I had the 9th exam, 6.5 out of 9, until I think September 2021.
Okay.
I don't know if it's, I think it's not valid now, but it was valid once I entered. and it's no problem to me to apply again for the exam. I have also taken the Hungarian language exam, the first part and the second part, and my tongue language is Arabic.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. No more questions. Thank you very much for the presentation. And according to my schedule, last but not least, I would like to announce Sally, please, the floor is yours. Please start the presentation.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome to my
Yeah, a
presentation.
little bit louder, that in the cheap background we can also hear you.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome
Yes, actually.
to my presentation. My name is Sally Eshwa and I'm a first-year PhD student in the Department of Aeronautics and Naval Architecture, specializing in aircraft maintenance, repair and overhaul. And today I'm here to present to you my research progress in the last year. I just want to say that the outcomes of this presentation is based on the collaboration between BME and Aeroplex of Central Europe. This is the contents of my presentation that we're going to go through in details. First, I'm going to talk about why did we choose to research in the field of MRO. We know that the demand for MRO in the future is going to be growing, so more MRO activities are expected to take place in the future. More activity, it means more load, and we still have a high potential for more development and process and technology development in the field of MRO. And we also have a risk from other major MRO companies and even from the manufacturers themselves. This is why the new methodologies are needed in the future. First of all, we did like an intensive investigation into the scientific literature. These are all just like the titles of the article that we have reviewed. These are only samples. And it was noticed that all of the articles in the MRO field fits perfectly under three categories. So the first one is development and digitalization of the operational process for the MRO companies. The second one is technology development for inspection and detection tools. And the last one is development for repair tools or process and repair manufacturing. When we approached the company, and we took their ideas and their proposals, indeed we found out the same thing, that all of their ideas and their proposals fit perfectly under these three categories or these three main groups, big groups. So now in order to determine the direction of the PhD topic, we did an assessment for the three categories based on the 12 criteria listed here. Every criteria has been divided from 0 to 10, 0 being the lowest mark and 10 being the highest. And based on the industry point of view, we assessed those three concepts or those three main groups. And these are the results, and as clearly we can see, the concept number 1, which is development and digitalization of the operational process for the MRO application, ranked the highest with 93% in comparison with the concept number 2 and concept number 3. And from this point, we know now that the PhD topic is headed toward research inside the first concept, the first group, which is development and digitalization of the operational process. But in order to know more about our research gaps and aims, we took another investigation inside the first group. So this is like a detailed investigation inside one group. So first, we know that the MRO companies collect a lot of data. This data is available now, but it's not being utilized or used. And no decision is being based on this huge data. And a lot of processes are rather human-based and need human intervention, which can increase the cost and time and can increase the risk of human-based errors. Of course, when we say digitalization and automation, we don't say only data transferring or storaging or handling, but we are talking about data processing and basing the decision based on the data that we have collected while using technological theories such as artificial intelligence, machine learning, Internet of Things, so on and so forth. Of course, in order for this framework to be utilized, it needs to be in line with the aviation authorities and aviation manufacturers, or under their rules and regulations. After we searched the aims and the gaps, we established the initial vision for our project. So we are going to develop some sort of software where we're going to input a lot of data from the company. So HR data, flight data, MRO data, qualification, tools, kit, materials. And if we mix those data with some sort of technological theories such as artificial intelligence, big data, blockchain, and Internet of Things, we can have optimized planning, day-to-day and long-term. And we created the vision statement for our product. So our product is for MRO companies, especially for ACE in the meantime, who wants a more transparent, automatic, and optimized workflow in its professional operation. The project, the development and digitalization of operational project is a PhD activity for creating a pre-developed software that can save a significant amount of time, cost, capacity in administration and planning, and unlike any other missing tool or software in the market, our product is flexible and can satisfy all expectations by means of achieving a reasonable reduction in time, cost, and capacity with optimum price to value level, as its development cost is minimized because we're going to apply for a different scientific tenders. So this is our vision, and it's crucial to know that the vision is working along the roadmap of the MRO. The maintenance go hand in hand with the aircraft technology, and aircraft technology is headed toward more sustainability, and digitalization fits perfectly under sustainability, so we are on our way or in line with the MRO roadmap. Of course, the automation and digitalization, of course, needs artificial intelligence, but artificial intelligence needs have several layers and levels, so it's very important to pick the right type or right level of AI, which is why now we are doing AI investigation in parallel with investigation the company's procedures. We're mapping out the entire process. If the vision was made in a correct way, the benefits to be expected are the mapping out of short and long-term maintenance, including manpower, materials, tools, and kits. We are going to expect decrease in human-based error. We are going to see the report progress in a more transparent way. We will have better improved communication, better integration with existing and external systems, and most importantly, significant cost, time, and capacity saving due to sustainability, because now we're not wasting a lot of material and energy. We are optimizing the labor required to manage and deliver work packages. The space for storing the packages and the documentation are not very is not very big. And of course, we will have workplace flexibility, and we will have optimization in everything: capacity, cost, investment, inventory, tools, and everything. So the benefits they give to the optimized operational process, but at the same time, the optimized gives back to the benefits, so it's like a win-win situation. These are some of my taking courses in the first and second semesters. The teaching activities that I have done, the publication activities, these are submitted but not yet approved. And these are my language requirements. When I applied, I was C1 level in English, and I have an A1 certificate in German from my country. The plan for future, we are going to continue the research inside the company. We are going to define the gap inside the company, outline the goal, and identify the project milestones. We're going to collect the needed tools, hardware and software, develop and implement the ideas. Of course, we are going to do verification and validation, KPI, determination and return of invest, intensify publication activity, and actually writing the dissertation. This is the ongoing publication activity. This is still ongoing. And for the next semester, we are going to finish the AI investigation, the mapping out the process inside the company, data collection, data processing, data cleaning, and the general outline of the software is now being done. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you very much. And honestly speaking, I don't have questions because you already answered about the language certificates and publication. Do we have any comments or questions from the audience side? No, then thank you very much for keeping the time for your presentation. And as a very short conclusion, I would like to say, you can never see that first of all, I would like to congratulate everyone for the presentation. It was very well done. Thank you very much. Congratulations for the result that you have already shown us. Also, and what I would like to know, I'm very glad that we could do it offline and face-to-face meeting. It's very good to see you. Thank you very much and have a nice day. Congratulations.